First question. At what point in time, this is from Mary in Cape Coral, at what point in time after my meeting of creditors should I start monitoring my credit report? This just gets me so excited because here's a person who had to file bankruptcy, but now they're saying, hey, when do I start watching my credit reports? There's no time too soon, but ultimately, you're not really going to see the changes made until about 90 days after your discharge. So I know you went to your meeting of creditors, and let's say, for example, Mary's in a Chapter 7. She filed bankruptcy. About 30 days after you file, you go to your meeting of creditors. About 90 to 120 days later, on average, you get your discharge. About 90 days after that is when I want you to pull the free credit reports. Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. First time you pull them, pull all three because you're going to want to see them. If you've already gotten free reports in the last 12 months, then you may have to pay for them. That's okay. Pay for the credit reports, get them, take a look and see what's on them. If there's stuff that needs to be disputed, like for example, Bank of America is still showing an outstanding balance that was included in the bankruptcy, you could dispute that. Or let's say there's a credit card on there, or an old mortgage on there, or something that's been resolved. You need to take action on it immediately. Get it off the credit report, or just showing at zero included in bankruptcy, and that's perfect. That's exactly the way it should be reported as on the trade line. The reason I say 90 days is give them an opportunity to get the discharge, run it through their systems, and get the proper information to the credit reporting agencies. You got to remember, folks, there's no incentive for the creditors to send this information to the credit reporting agencies because there's no policing unit. There's nothing under the Fair Credit Reporting Act that says they have to do something to protect your credit report. If you dispute it, then they have to take corrective action. They're only supposed to report legitimate information or correct information, but you have to get to them and say, hey, I'm disputing that. That's not true. Then they have to verify whether the creditor has to verify whether or not that information is true and correct. So what you're looking at is going ahead and getting all of them, the disputes taken care of on Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and then following up on it to make sure your credit report is in the proper posture so that as new things come on, let's say you're making ongoing car payments or ongoing mortgage payments, and you're out there busting your butt to make sure those payments are timely made. You want that information starting to supplement what you've, the negative information that's coming off the credit report or that's now been updated. So what happens is your credit report starts building quicker. I learned this week that there's a lot of new programs out there, or existing programs from the FHA, VA, and other lenders to get people back into the mortgage game after filing. Because a lot of people ask me, hey Carmen, can I get a mortgage after you file? And the answer is yes, you can. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's say, so Mary, I want you to start doing it usually about 90 days after your credit report's done. So that one takes care of that one. After that, how often? Okay, I'm sorry, it's a follow-up for Mary. Yes, you get free credit reports from every credit reporting agency per year. So you got the three major credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. My advice is very simple. Every 4 months, you pull a different one. So let's say, for example, in January, you pull Equifax. You get it free. You look at it, you make any changes. In May, you pull Experian, and you make the changes. Again, that's a free one too. And then 4 months later, let's say around September, you pull TransUnion. And then ultimately in January, you start the same cycle over so that you always have a free credit report, but you're monitoring all three of them at least once a year. Alternatively, you can go pull them anytime you want. I wouldn't suggest pulling them too often. I don't also suggest buying one of those credit monitoring services. And I don't want to put myself too far on a limb here. I can't understand the expense. If you do have a legitimate identity theft crisis, then you can obviously put on an alert to the credit reporting agencies, and that's not difficult to do, letting them know that you have an identity issue, or identity theft issue, excuse me, identity issue, and you have an identity theft issue, and that you want to put an alert on the credit report just in case somebody's out there trying to use your credit. But usually once every 3 months is enough to monitor. If you see something on there you don't like, inquire about it immediately. Find out what's going on, because ultimately your credit identity, or your identity online, whatever you want to call it, throughout the credit reporting agencies is extremely important going forward. A lot of people are, again, worried about buying property in the future, access to credit, And we're seeing a little bit more credit loosened up. Not a lot, I'll be honest with you, but it's baby steps in an economy like this. So again, I would just do it yearly, but I would do it once every 4 months, Mary, because you're looking at constant monitoring as opposed to one-shot deal and let it go. So good question.